What's going on, boxing fans? So Manny Pacquiao, obviously A-Division world champ, very reputable fighter, legendary fighter in the sport of boxing. He was talking about Devin Haney and said that you have to find balance. It's all about balance, and he's not saying that Devin Haney should ultimately, all of a sudden change his style and whatnot, but he's also saying it's a boxer's duty to entertain the fans at the end of the day. You can't just fight for the money. And, Devin's kind of showed that he's trying to protect that bag. Everybody blames him and accuses him of, just protecting the Ryan Garcia rematch. He wanted to protect the bag. That's why he looked so afraid, and he was not throwing punches in his fight against Jose Ramirez. And Manny's talking about how you have to give the fans entertainment. Boxing started out as a sport that provided entertainment for the fans. That's what boxing started as. It wasn't about, obviously a sweet science is what it is today. That's incorporated now, and with all the science and the health research behind, obviously not being hit in the head is good and whatnot, obviously. But we all know that this is the hurt business, and Manny Pacquiao talked about how, like what I just said, you have to find balance. He's not saying go in there and just, allow yourself to get hit with big shots and whatnot, but still, you owe it to the fans as a fighter to perform and give the fans a good fight. And when you don't do that, you start to lose fans and you start to almost antagonize yourself. And I'm not saying that you should try to please everybody, because at the end of the day, everybody's gonna have a hater, no matter what. And that's the sport of boxing for you. But what Manny's trying to say is that Devin has to switch some stuff up. He has to take a little bit more risk, because like I said, boxing is a sport that was built on entertainment. This didn't become a sport based on, running around. And not to say that Devin didn't win that fight against Jose Ramirez. He won the fight, but like what Pacquiao is saying, you have to take risk and entertain the people, because those are the people that are going to get you more money. The money doesn't come without taking risk and being a fan-friendly fighter. That's the issue with winning and obviously getting the job done. But now you see guys with belts, you see the best fighters with undefeated records. A lot of them are winning, but they're not getting paid the way guys like Ryan Garcia, guys like Tank, even though these guys have losses and draws and whatnot, they're still getting paid more than most of the champions that have belts and are undisputed. So it's like, how do you go about telling people that it's important to win fights when ultimately, they're not making money the same way that Ryan Garcia and Tank are? So, like what I'm saying about Devin Haney, it's not like Devin's not making a lot of money. He's one of the few that's able to do it, but also for the longevity of his career, he has to find out, what's more important, making money, pleasing the fans, or just getting the job done by any means necessary. Because it looked like, just judging from Devin Haney's performance, that he's just trying to get the bag, protect it, and take as little punishment as possible and ride off into the sunset in the future, which is smart. But you can't expect to be associated with guys like Pacquiao or Floyd, because at the end of the day, you have to stop trying to be Floyd if you're Devin Haney, because you've already had that moment where you got embarrassed. And it's not fair, because Ryan Garcia was technically on PEDs, right? But still, you technically got beat up. That never happened to Floyd. So all this, let's try to be Floyd kind of stuff, that goes out the window, because, you're a different fighter now. So Devin might as well, try to fight the best fights that he can and not be so conservative with his punch output. He has to entertain the fans, because he's not Floyd. You already got beat up, unfortunately. It wasn't a fair fight, but you still got beat up. You're traumatized. You're not the same fighter anymore. But continue to take big risks. Continue to take these big fights, because at the end of the day, people are going to support you more that way, as opposed to him, doing what he did against Jose Ramirez. Like, he's going to lose fans if he keeps fighting the way that he did on that night, because no one wants to see you run around. That's not boxing. That's why they're talking about making a rule, no running in the sport of boxing, because at the end of the day, like, a sweet science is different from, running, and you have to distinguish the two. I'm not saying that Devin Haney lost to Jose Ramirez, but that was something where it was like, there has to be a little bit of action. This sport wasn't built off of, hitting and running around. I understand it's hit and not get hit, but at the end of the day, like Pacquiao said, this is about entertaining the fans. You can't become a superstar without taking risks. At the end of the day, Ryan Garcia cheated against Devin Haney. We could say that, right? But still, Devin Haney gained some fans from that. He gained some viewership from that beating that he took against Ryan Garcia. you know, no matter what the case may be. Maybe it's not the performance or the outcome that he wanted, but a lot of people started to respect Devin, you know, despite what people are saying on social media, because he took that kind of beating and, you know, proceeded to call Ryan Garcia out, you know, and want to make another fight happen. Yeah, they talked about the lawsuit and whatnot, but still, you know, that's the kind of stuff that makes Devin Haney popular. He's in the conversations, you know, for big fights still, but if he continues to fight the way that he did against Jose Ramirez, it's like, how do you go about making money then? You know, from then on, no one's going to really want to see you fight. At that rate, you know, that Devin Haney's fighting at, he's gonna become, you know, a nobody. And I'm not saying that he can't become world champion again, because he can win again, but he's gonna lose a lot of fans fighting the way he did. And, you know, I just hope that it's just one of those performances that he has to shake off and he gets his confidence back. You know, that's what it all comes down to, is the confidence and whether or not he'll be the same fighter, you know, in the future. Because this was a get back fight, I'll give him that, but in future fights, we need to see Devin Haney let his hands go a little bit more. If not, you know, he's gonna lose fans and ultimately fall short against the elite. And that's just how the sport of boxing is. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Pacquiao giving some advice to Devin Haney. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next Nabs Boxing video. It's been your boy Matt with Nabs Boxing. Peace.